Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is the Public Affairs Roundtable presented each month by the Williamson Inc., our Williamson Chamber of Commerce, and we're glad to have you with us this morning. We've got a lot more interesting things still going on in Nashville, and we've got our legislative delegation here to help tell us all about the inside story on a lot of this stuff. With us this morning, we've got our Senator Jack Johnson, representing all of Williamson County now. We've got 61st District State Representative Charles Sargent.
Good morning.
And 63rd District Representative Glenn Cassida. Glad to have you all with us this morning. And Jeremy Durham should be here with us at some point, and we'll look forward to seeing him momentarily. Jeremy is now with us, our 65th District Representative. Glad to have you with us this morning, Jeremy. We've last month we did pretty much a wrap-up on the legislative session for 2016, and we didn't have time to really get very deep into the education aspects of the session or the transportation aspects of the session. I've always said my state representative, that's really the only two issues that I care if he does anything about. So let's focus on those this morning, and might as well go ahead and deal with what the media is most interested in right now, and that's transgender bathrooms. Jack, what are the both sides of that issue, and how do you see it?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one side of the issue, and that is that the President of the United States issued a directive, effectively a threat, to school districts all across the nation in an unprecedented fashion, really, with a letter that threatened to withhold funds over how local schools, and by the way, this didn't even go to the districts. It didn't go to the state. It didn't go to the districts. It went directly to the schools. So we have a President of the United States issuing directives directly to the schools that your kids attend. And I can't tell you how scary that is. And to have some, regardless of where you are on the issue of how the transgender bathroom issue ought to be handled, I would just submit to you that it ought to be handled at the state and the local level. And we don't need any bureaucrat or any federally elected official dictating that. So I cannot tell you how proud I am of the Tennessee Attorney General and Governor Bill Haslam for joining the lawsuit. I believe 11 other states that are now suing the federal government, and I hope this gets expedited to the Supreme Court and the President's actions get reversed, because it is extra constitutional, it is unconstitutional, it's in direct violation of the 10th Amendment and state sovereignty. And again, there's two issues. We can talk about how we should handle the issue of transgender individuals with regards to what bathroom they use. That's a contentious debate. The other issue is where that should be decided, and should it be dictated by the President of the United States to schools in Williamson County or any other place in the United States. And I would submit to you that it shouldn't. So I'm very proud that Tennessee has now joined the lawsuit. We were probably headed to a special session to deal with this issue had the Attorney General not taken the issue that they took. It looks like that's been averted, and we will join the lawsuit. And I'm very, very proud of our Attorney General and the Governor for standing up.
Good. David, if I could drill down more, the action of this president, it only happens in dictatorships. In our country, in a republic, Congress makes the laws, and they fund those actions. What we have is a president whose Department of Justice and DOE overriding the will of the people. U.S. Congress has appropriated money for Title IX funding. The DOJ, Department of Education, simply waived previous understandings of Title IX and the funding. The will of the people were overraised by his dictates. It is, as Jack said, it is scary. It is a threat to the republic for a president to act this way.
Yeah, I think Jack did an excellent explanation of how it all came down, and there again, I'm so proud of General Slattery to file a lawsuit, because this has to be stopped. It's almost like the feds come in and say, you have to build this road, I have to do this. We cannot do that. It has to be decided on state and local issues. I mean, once we start losing control in the state, or the locals lose control, this has to be decided It's not for us. I know we're gonna talk about roads, just come in and say we're gonna give you money to widen Hillsborough Road, but we're not gonna do Columbia Pike. The locals know better what road and what, on our schools, what needs to be done. It's not the federal government, it's the locals and the state should decide those, and I'm so proud that the Attorney General filed a lawsuit. So I think we're there.
Right.
I
Jeremy?
mean, not only is this obvious federal overreach, I mean, even if it were the proper role of the federal government, the president doesn't even have the power to do what he said. So it was really, it was unprecedented on a lot of levels. It's just something that he should have never gotten involved in. But if we need to fight him at the state level, and we are, we'll continue to do so.
Well, I'm not a historical scholar, but Obama's following, I think, Roosevelt's model of doing a lot of directives that ultimately are overruled by the Supreme Court after he leaves office. So
We hope so.
that's
We hope so.
that's well-worn path. Tennessee Ready, or 10 Ready, I guess I should call it. The testing issue is one of the major issues. It's kind of died down, it seems like, but the testing didn't go very well this spring, and so we brought Pearson back in. What does the legislature have to say about how all that's going and what might happen in the next session as a result?
I'll let Charles drill down, but from a macro view, the legislature creates laws for the state, and we fund the request of the department. So the Department of Education makes a request that we want to this company to monitor testing, to measure testing, or you put in the blank. The legislature, trusting the departments, usually funds their request, and the company that made promises they couldn't deliver. The commissioner accepted on face value the promises that were made, and the company failed, and they were fired.
Charles is about to get a lot more specific. I want to jump in before he does that. We have a part-time legislature, and there's just certain things the executive branch handles, and that's the way our Constitution is written. That's the way it probably should be. I like the way that we have it here in Tennessee. However, when there's things that go wrong like this, then the legislature gets more involved. I think certainly we need to look at how we select our vendors and make sure that they're being held accountable before they have to deliver a product to the classroom. So I think that's one thing I'm hearing from some of our colleagues we might want to look at going forward.
Well, Commissioner McQueen did the right thing. They tried this, and they went through all the precautions of doing this like back in November, and they thought they had the testing down correctly. Then when they tried to do it throughout the state, the system crashed. They did not have enough capacity, enough hardware to do it. Then they came back, and there was a meeting with the commissioner. They came back, and they could not do it, and basically fired, and it was a performance-based contract, so we really didn't cost us anything. We spent a little over $1 million. I know that's a lot of money, but we're probably even going to end up with that back, and they've rebid it out to a company that has performed, and some people don't like that particular company, but they have performed, and they do it. So I give the commissioner, a lot of times you just don't fire some of these contracts or terminate the contract. So I give the commissioner, she tried to work with them, and it didn't work, and she just terminated the contract, and at no cost to the taxpayers.
David, if I could, on
Sure.
A 30,000-foot level, how did we get here? And I would submit that, it's good news. I mean, we're making significant progress in the state of Tennessee with regards to our educational outcomes. According to the NAEP test, we've gone from about 45th to about 35th in the nation. Not that we're proud of being 35th, but we're making good progress. We're the fastest improving state. This governor and this General Assembly has been focused intently on education for the last 6 years, and the governor's going to continue to be focused on it for the remainder of his administration. We had the issue with Common Core, which was repealed, but we're still trying to get to a point to where we have standards that are aligned with an appropriate assessment, and that's where we have to get. But it's a big challenge to get there.
Right.
And this was a stumbling block on that path, but that's all it was. It was a stumbling block. We'll draw back, reassess the assessment, and we'll end up where we need to be, which is to have good, high-quality standards that are achievable, that are measurable. But this governor and the General Assembly is very focused on assessing the progress of students so we know where they are. And that's why it's so critical that we have this assessment. But we've got to continue to work with our local districts, and the department is doing that to come up with the appropriate assessment. Measurement Inc., who's the company that we hired, just couldn't get the job done. And it's unfortunate, but we'll correct that.
Right. That sounds like the journey from Common Core to Tennessee's own assessment is still on track, but just with the stumbling block, as you mentioned. So, no further action from the legislature to move that along in any other direction. We're still on the right direction there.
Yeah, I mean, and let me be redundant, but Dave, since World War II, when schools and states were measured, Tennessee, performance-wise, was the bottom 2 or 3. In 6 short years, this governor and this Republican General Assembly has turned that around. We're, as Jack just said, now 35th. That's unheard of. Mm-hmm. We're heading in the right direction. We're doing things right. Let's continue moving forward.
And let me say one thing. I know one of the focus was going to be roads and schools and funding. This year, I know we're going to get deeper into the funding. Governor Haslam has put additional, $249 million into K through 12. This is the largest amount of new money that's ever gone into K through 12 as far as that's concerned. In the last 2 years, we put over $400 million of new money into K through 12 because this is something we all know we have to get it, and we have to get our students ready to go to college, ready for the workforce. And I think this is why we're very fortunate here in Williamson County. We have the best school system in the state, and you can see with the growth of our economic growth here in the county, people are just announcing, it seems like every month we have a new company looking at and relocating to Williamson County. And I know the county mayor is here, Rogers Anderson, and what a great job they do. Snyder Electric is coming, 1,000 new jobs coming here to Middle Tennessee, here to Williamson County. Average salary, $73,000, $74,000 average salary. So this is very important to us as legislators and to Governor Haslam to make sure we have our educational system correct.
And it's the schools that are bringing these companies here in a great degree. Absolutely. As you mentioned, we're going to get deeper into the numbers, Charles, and that's your specialty. The one thing I totally don't understand, and I'm hoping we can understand it a little better this morning, is the BEP formula and how that affects us. And that seems to be tied into growth counties versus counties that are not growing, and that's not helping us here in Williamson County. Can you unravel that tangled web?
It would probably take me about 5 hours to try to even explain how the formula is a very, very complicated formula. It's also to do with the wealth of a county or a city and the way it works. And we've had a formula in place since 1992 or 93. We came out with the BEP formula. The small schools sued the state back then, and they came up with this formula. Every time we seems like we change it, the wealthier counties, because of the wealth of a county, they're saying that locals can pay for it. Where a small rural county or a very poor county, they cannot afford the education type system. So every time the system gets changed, we have to look at what do we do for Williamson County. And we had a meeting with Dr. Looney and Dr. Snowden. We was able to help Dr. Looney because there's some funds outside of the BEP formula, like growth money. This year, we put in the budget, and we all worked on this to get the growth money, and we decided that was the best way to do it. And we put an additional $9 million into growth. Well, what that meant for Williamson County, that was $3 million. We got 1/3 of that money because the way how fast we're growing. The other counties that really helped was Wilson, Sumner, Rutherford. Those fast-growing counties, get devastated by the way the formula and the wealth of those counties come down. So a lot of times we have to think outside the box and see where we can get money that's going to help Williamson County even say more than a rural county, and because that's what we're here to do. I mean, the four of us are here to protect Williamson County, Franklin Special School District.
Right.
Now, that growth money did not help Franklin Special, but we're working on some things. I have a meeting next week with the State Department of Insurance, on some of the Franklin Special School District has a different type. They buy supplements for their employees, and now the state is saying that we cannot do this. So we're fighting with them now to give us another window of a year to figure out how to do this, and that would help Franklin Special School District. So, like I
So
said,
when you say the state's telling them they can't do that, is that the State Department of Education, the governor, or who's telling them that?
Actually, finance and
this
administration.
was finance and administration under the state insurance contracts. So this is, I mean, you get off to all different areas, and Williamson County is under the state, or under the county group policy, which is part of the, well, self-funded, so it's really not part of the state plan. Franklin Special School District has their own plan, and they use supplements, and Glenn carried a bill that these supplements could be used as part of the insurance program. The state turned around and said no, because of some underwriting guidelines and actuarial tables. They said you're not paying the correct amount of premium. So I mean, it goes all over, and Glenn carried the bill, and then we couldn't get that bill passed, but we're still working on trying to do this to help. Because I mean, to Franklin Special School District, it could be a $500,000, $1 million, almost $1 million just on health insurance costs. So, I mean, it's not just one area; it's all over the board.
Well,
I know I probably just complicated it.
I guess the state, 42%, I think, of the state budget is education, and I think the state's about a $35 billion budget this year. So when you start moving $17 billion around, there's a lot of things that fall out and fall back in, and so we've got you guys down there to stay on top of that stuff and protect us. Anybody else want to venture into the world of education funding and help us understand that better? I'm still not sure.
Bottom line, we get about 45 cents for every dollar we spend. We get 45 cents from the state, and 55 cents is coming from the county government. I can go to other counties, and the highest one county is getting about 92% of their budget is funded by the state, and 8% is funded by the county. So those are the two extremes. There's one school district in the state that gets less than us per pupil. We get about $3,400. There's one less than us, but most of them are getting, the average is about $4,800. So I'm looking at trying to figure out how to do a bill that no one can get less than 10%. They have to get at least 90% of the average, which would bring us up by $1,000, and that would be a lot of money for Williamson County. So I'm not saying we don't have to help the rural counties, but yet we cannot keep putting the burden on our taxpayers when the state needs to do some of this. So I'm looking at trying to do an average weighting system, because we're so far down the chart as far as funding is concerned.
Interesting. Jack, does the Senate get into
Oh,
some of that?
absolutely, and the bottom line is this: we get penalized because of our prosperity. We get penalized because we have great schools, and that's not the way it should work. You have the growth money, which Charles talked about, and also the CDF, the cost differential factor, which, you know, it's more expensive to build a school, maintain a school in Williamson County than it is in Hancock County, and that should be part of the formula, but that keeps getting diminished, which ends up hurting counties like Williamson County, where things are more expensive. And then the growth factor, the component of BEP. So it is a very complex formula, but the good news is this governor is does not have a mindset to penalize wealthier districts. That's not it. It's just you've got a pie, and you've got to divide it up, and we just have to constantly fight to not be penalized because of our tax base and our economic vitality.
Right. Jeremy, Glenn, any additional color there?
No, I mean, really not. It is a continuous fight. You've got just a handful of legislators from successful, prosperous districts in the state, and we're constantly defending what is the right thing to do.
We're in the position of trying to defend what we have because our children do so well here and our schools are so good. So it makes other districts want to take from what we have when we think the resources go further because of the great people that we have in place here. But we're always trying to defend what we have because everybody else thinks, well, if they're doing well, they don't need as much. And we are always on the other side of that issue.
Well, they always told me, I heard, that the best defense is a good offense. So go after it, guys, and try to beat that back. Anything else along the lines of education? The vouchers did not make it this year. Are they coming back next year?
Yeah, I've already been contacted by those entities, and they're definitely bringing them back this year. And I guess you saw, it's still bragging about our education, the state, the Department of Education just announced that those graduating seniors entering college, it has decreased about 15% that need remedial help. Further testament to the success of our high schools in the state under this governor and this General Assembly. So if you're looking for performance, you're looking for excellence in education, Tennessee's the place to be.
Good deal. Good deal. Moving on to transportation, let's take a sashay through the bond rating increase that Tennessee got yesterday from Standard & Poor's. So we're now AAA or the equivalent by all three rating agencies. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was announced Standard & Poor's gave us a AAA. We were AA. The other two agencies were AAA. And this is the first time that we've been AAA from all three agencies since 2000. And you can credit a lot of this to the governor and his budget. I mean, when we went through the budget this year, I'll use a couple of things on there. The governor wanted to make sure we put like $100 million into the rainy day fund. By law, all we had to do is put about $39 million in. We have a very conservative legislator, and all of us looked at that and said, you know, we're putting $61 million more than what we need to in a rainy day fund. And those are the appropriate things to do. We did not bond anything this year. We paid cash for some of our colleges, some of our campuses. This is the first year in years we can't even go back and see that we did not issue a bond. And then our bonds that we have on the books, we were at one point $1,970,000,000. We're down to $1,800,000,000. We paid off $120 million in bonds. So this is what the rating agencies, and people say, well, why do you care? Well, it's a big deal now when you go out and you're going to issue a $50 million bond and you're in finance, and instead of having maybe a 3.1% interest rate, you're down to 2.4, 2.5. You're saving millions of dollars a year as far as that's concerned. So that frees up money that we can use for our schools, for our roads, and things of that nature. I mean, so I give Governor Haslam a great deal of credit for sticking to his guns. And you know, sometimes it's easy to turn around and say, well, I only need $40 million. Let's spend the other $60 million on new projects, new programs. Mm-hmm. And that's the temptation we have as legislators, and we all turn around and said, no, we're going to be fiscal conservative. We're not spending that money. We're going to put it into the rainy day fund. Our rainy day fund will be $678 million, $678 million, the second highest it's ever been. So, I mean, so, you know, when things happen or turn south, say in 18 or 19, we have the money to pay our bills. And we're funding all these programs correctly, and we're able to reduce our bond indebtedness. And you know, just when I look at the other states throughout the country, I just sit and say, you know, how does this all happen? And being conservative and not spending all this money is all part of it.
Well,
Excuse me.
No, no, it's well said. And Dave, I'd add, I wish Washington, D.C. would look at Tennessee. There's a reason why Tennessee is one of the fastest growing job creators, wealth creators in the nation. And it's because if you will cut taxes, if you'll cut the size of government, let the entrepreneur spirit of the American and the Tennessean thrive, we are an example of what happens.
Right.
And so, again, I just wish Washington, D.C. would mimic the state of Tennessee.
I agree. I think Charles especially just nailed it. I mean, when you have a surplus, I mean, the temptation is just to spend it immediately. But we did spend 142 extra into the highway fund. I mean, we did take care of our priorities, but we also put $100 million, which was much more than we had to put back, into the rainy day fund, and that showed some restraint. And I was really glad that the legislature showed that type of maturity this year.
Well, just sitting in the stands watching a 7-on-7 ball game a couple of weeks ago, and got to talking to the guy next to me who just moved here from, I probably shouldn't say the state, but Chicago. And I said, "What brought you here?" He said, "I'm scared of what's going to happen to Illinois." He said he went down to get his driver's license here. He had to wait in line. He said, "I'm good with that." He said, "Because up there they have 40 people for every person in line, and the taxes are going up, and he was getting tired of that." So thank you for your fiscal responsibility. That's rare in politics, and we appreciate it. Any, had another thought there, but it just went totally by me. That pretty well covers the budget in general. Transportation is another, for me, a little hard to understand the way the funding is handled. And right before the session was over, the governor came out with a new 3-year road plan that, I understand it required legislative approval. Did that get approved?
Mm-hmm.
Or, okay, I didn't see whether that it actually happened or not. Did not have McAtcher in it. It included Duplex Road down in Spring Hill. It included the right-of-ways for an extension of Saturn Parkway. It included Franklin Road in Charles's district from
Concord
Moore's
Road
Lane,
down to Concord to Moores.
So that's going to be a 5-lane road
Correct.
sometime soon. And it included some right-of-way out in Triune to improve that intersection in Triune. Now, that's TDOT money, I guess. The MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, for our benefit of our audience, is a organization made up of all the mayors of the towns and cities in Middle Tennessee, and a few other folks, I think, but that decides how to dole out the federal money. But at least that's the story. But then this money comes through TDOT, and some of it comes from MPO, and everybody's got their own plan. Columbia Avenue was on the MPO plan, but it wasn't on the TDOT plan. So somebody explain to me, is there just 2 or 3 sheets of music being played all at the same time, or how does this work?
I'd love for Charles to take this.
We'll let Charles handle this. Let's start. Here's a good analogy. So here's the complexity of BEP funding. Here's the complexity of road funding. So it's very, very similar. But Charles.
Well, I'll try. Maybe we need to have the county mayor up here because he sits on the NPO and everything.
Rogers, get ready.
As far Rogers and I talk about this a number of times. Let me start. Let me go up and then try to come down softly. Our road funding is roughly $1.8 billion. That's made up of state gasoline tax money and federal gasoline tax money. And I'm going to round numbers up. It's about 40 cents. You pay on a gallon of gas, you pay about 40 cents on gasoline tax. That's state and federal. 21 cents roughly is state, 19 cents is federal. So that money comes down And what we collect, we used to be what I call a donor state. Everything we paid up to Washington, we didn't get back. Now we are not. We're getting back basically 100% to 101% of the money we send up, we get back. So then they do a 3-year road project, and there's about 4 MPOs throughout the state. You got one in Chattanooga, there's one up in the Tri-Cities area, Knoxville, Davidson County, and Memphis. I think those are the 4 major, or 5 or 6 major MPOs they have. Then it goes into the MPOs, and all the city managers and county mayors are part of this division. And they'll sit down and look at what road they try to work together on road projects, how it would affect Williamson County going into Davidson County, or Davidson County coming into Williamson County. So they try to look at the whole outreach on it. Just because they want to do it, the MPO does not have all the authority. Actually, the authority is still vested in the legislators and the Senate and the House and the Commissioner, John Crower. So they make their recommendations, and a lot of times you'll see a road and you're saying, well, because we have so much traffic on this road, that needs to be widened. One of the first things TDOT looks at is the fatality rate on a road. You may have a road that's not heavily traveled, but you have 10 deaths or 1 death for every 1,000 miles or 10,000 miles. So they look at those roads really first, I mean, as far as that's concerned. And we have to look at moving traffic throughout the state. But they look at the high mortality rate roads. It could be a winding road somewhere, and it's a lot of accidents on it. And you may have another road, let's say Hillsborough Road, that I believe should be widened all the way into Davidson County to 5 lanes, but that road maybe has very few accidents on it. So that safety is the main concern of TDOT. So that's when you have to start looking at it. And then, you know, you have to look at the progression of, and let me use Franklin.
So what you're saying is, if we want our roads improved, we need to start having more wrecks.
Well,
that's the way I understand it.
Like someone else
you just hit
said,
it.
if you want to stop growth, just have bad schools and you stop growth. But that doesn't work. I mean, you know, we can't have bad schools and we can't have bad roads. So I think when you look at what in Williamson County over the last 4 or 5 years, if and we don't look at it, but I-65 is part of Williamson County, right. And that's being widened. As you know now, they've opened up all the lanes going down to basically 840, right. And because on I-65 the backup was coming all the way up to 96, almost up to McEwen exit. I mean, that's how far it was starting to back right. up. So that moved a whole lot more traffic. There are the Williamson County and the MPO, they know what roads. Rogers knows a lot more about what roads needs to be built than, say, someone in Sumner County. They don't have any idea what needs to be done here in Williamson County. So they put these different roads on the road list, and it's usually a 3-year project, and they work off that 3-year project. This year, with the extra money we're going to have, we'll probably work off 2 years of the 3-year road project. Mm-hmm. So next year, when we're looking at it, I believe roads like Mac Hatcher will be put on there, right. And things of that nature. So you know, I'm giving you, maybe an overview, but and we do not bond roads. There again, we could go out and build $100 million worth of roads today and put a bond on it, but then it's going to cost us, bond indebtedness, $10 million a year for 20 years. So I mean,
well, let me reminds me, there is a line on the TDOT work program budget for bond authorization for about $84 million.
We have to do that. The federal government makes us.
Well, the federal government, plus the fact
we don't spend it, but we have to.
We never issue a bond for our roads. What it is, it gives us the ability to go out and bid a road, and if we did not have the money, then we could issue a bond for a road. We never use that. We use that more as a line of credit saying that you will get paid. Or that contractor will get paid. So it's used as a line of credit more than an amount of money. So you have to think of it that way, because if something happened, yes, we have the authority to do it. We never use the authority to use the money. That's why it's in there every year.
And keep in mind, because of the incompetence of the federal government, particularly in the Obama administration, there's been no consistency with regards to that federal highway money. I mean, they've been doing stopgap measures
For 60 days, 90
60 days, 90 days. I mean, literally, we're here. It's $900 million of our money. And keep in mind, this is money we as Tennesseans are sending to Washington. This isn't just like they're making up money and sending it. It's our money that we send in federal gas tax. And because of their incompetence, they can't pass a budget. We sometimes don't know how much federal money we're going to have on an ongoing basis. So we might go out, TDOT might go out and agree to a $200 million road project, of which maybe $120 million is federal money. And we're just got to hope and pray that they're actually going to come through with their commitment to do the project. So we don't use that line of credit, but it is necessary that it be authorized.
Now that $990 million on the state program, is that MPO money or is that separate? The federal funding under the TDOT work program, $960 million.
Well, if you're referring to the federal portion of the federal gas tax that comes back to us, that's not MPO money. They weigh in on how that's spent.
Correct. I mean,
Rogers, come on up.
I don't know exactly what, let's see what you're looking at. Maybe I can.
2 pages of it. The Rogers, come up here and.
Sorry, Rogers, I didn't mean to get you in the middle of this.
Rogers was the chairman of the MPO
Right, correct.
for a couple years up until I think this calendar year. Is that right?
The MPO is an organization that oversees the money through the federal highway. You have the Federal Highway Administration. And the MPO serves those cities that are 5,000 population and more. Those cities that are not 5,000 and more, they still have a seat at the table, but they don't have a vote at the table. But then you have your county organizations, such as the county mayor, that may come into the picture that represents the smaller cities, such as you might have Noblesville, for example, Thompson Station, and those particular areas. It doesn't mean they're excluded from getting money, but it's interesting that the MPOs that are involved in the Middle Tennessee area, is the vast majority of that money goes to pay for city projects and not necessarily unincorporated projects, such as the Williamson County outside those city limits. That's not uncommon. In fact, in the probably 15 years that I've been there, I can only think of one time that an unincorporated area got any funding, but that's the way the formula works from the feds. Now, the TDOT money that you are kicking around, and I'm not sure about that number, Jack, that you're trying to figure out, there's a certain pool of money that comes through Washington that gets to the state that commissioner and the legislators have authority over, and that is in those rural areas that do not have an MPO. They have what they call a different organization. But it would not be fair to counties that do not have that population base to meet the standards, nor would it be fair for those counties that are in the rural area not to get the road. So John or Commissioner Schroer and others do have a way to get funding, and you saw that in the legislators this year, and I forgot the exact amount of money, $100 million, $40 million?
$42 million.
$42 million, which was double up over what currently was there. We received $21 million. You allocated $21 million to all of the counties throughout the state of Tennessee. Then there was another $42 million that was voted on by you gentlemen and others I think that was out of the governor's budget that he proposed, and that allowed some more money to go out into the unincorporated rural areas that need that. And then they use that with matching funds. A few years ago, for an example, in the highway department here in the county,
to get bridge money and road money. We call that state aid money. And so the state sends us money, and we're required to match that money 5%, 10%. Currently, it's 2%. You guys voted to bring that on down. So these rural areas, now, I'm not saying that helped larger metropolitan areas like Davidson County, because most of theirs is metropolitan. But it does help the smaller counties who quite oftentimes can't even fund their own, and that is a choice of their county commissioners in these rural areas. They choose not to fund the road improvements or the bridge improvements, and you don't have to go but to the next surrounding counties. One of them that touches us, that their budget's always strained every single year, and we've probably got 6 or 8 county highway departments across the state don't even offer health insurance to their employees, and that's sad. It's hard to get someone to work on a hot paving, and so you can't contract it out. They don't have any money for that. You can't get anybody to work, except probably can't find work someplace else, and they're not going to be very dependable. So that's kind of the way the trail of the money goes. Here in the county, we represent, each city that we have is represented with a vote, and then the county has a vote, and we also have the highway superintendent placed on the MPO board to give us that flavor for all the funding. I don't know if I confused you or helped you, but these projects that come down, Dave, as the governor has said, and I've heard these gentlemen say before, if you looked at Columbia Avenue today, unless the city's involved, you're probably not going to get any highway money. And so you're going to have to kick in money to get these projects going, and it's probably 4 to 5 years before you'll ever see any dirt being moved, because you got to go through all the actuarials, the environmental issues, the acquisitions of that property. I think I heard the governor say last September at a meeting we had, if he started a project today, it would be 6 years before you would see it, which oftentimes governors come into office on the backs of whatever the past governor did. So it's a very complicated process. I love Jack's illustration of the BEP and the funding. At the end of the day, it's at best a strain to get new roads unless you're willing to put in some money at the local level, and that's often difficult to do for some of these other counties.
Let me say one thing. This is where working with Rogers very closely, the board was weighted, and the MPO here in Middle Tennessee was weighted to actually Davidson County, Nashville, and we were able to change this. 2 things we were able to do. The county did not have, all the counties surrounding Davidson and Davidson County did not have anybody on the board that represented the County Highway Association. So we were able to place, and we're fortunate enough that Eddie Hood, it is Eddie on the board, correct? Eddie Hood, we was able to get him on the MPO board to represent from the county side of it. We also, some of the rules have been changed on the weighted basis so that Metro just cannot outvote everybody else on where some of this funding is going to go. Right. So these are the things, working with the county mayor, we're able to do, because Rogers knows a lot more about on the local issue than Charles Sargent does. So meeting with, going back and forth, we can work these, situations out. And the 42 million Rogers was talking about that we put extra into the road fund this year, they normally would get 21, so we did 3 years worth of funding in 1 year, so they're actually getting 63. And I think of the 63, we get $1 million of that. So Williamson County will get $1 million, and that's for county roads, not for inside a municipality. Right. So, I mean, that was what Roger's saying. I know some counties, they have to save up their money 2 or 3 years to have enough money to do a road, as far as that's concerned. So, this is where I think we all work very closely with the mayor and, figure out how we can do this, that we don't get outvoted in the process. And these are all the things that happen, and Jeremy worked on some of that a couple of years ago, and we've been able to do this.
Yeah. Jeremy?
Excuse me.
I was just going to add to that. The bill he's talking about, I think Senator McNally was the Senate sponsor when we did the MPO bill. What we found is that if you looked at the weighted voting, which they typically don't do, but if they wanted to enact weighted voting, I think 47% of the votes were out of Metro. And if you just look at the new population numbers, it was very obvious that the collar counties should have more representation. And we also had the factor of, you have, some mayors on there, but you need somebody who knows what it's about to build a road. So those were kind of the two issues we were facing. We wanted the representation from the people that were actually out there building the roads. And it's just one vote. It's not like everybody's county highway person. But we also think it needs to be fair. If these people are going to play a legitimate role in determining how our federal highway funds are spent, we need to make sure that it's a proportionate representation amongst the collar counties like Williamson and Sumner and Metro. So that's what we did.
Dave, if I could follow up just one other comment on that.
Sure.
I think it's important that you realize the MPO for Franklin and Brentwood and your cities, they would be more interested in bike and walking trails and projects like that. And there's always that argument if that's important or not. I mean, you have your opinion and I have mine. In the unincorporated area, we don't have bike trails. We don't have walking trails on some of these unincorporated roads. And so you've got that mix of that conversation that goes on, which is very, very important to Franklin and even to Davidson County. And I appreciate Representative Durham's bringing out the one vote, because of all the history that we've ever done, there's never been a weighted vote called until the time we took a vote last month to do away with it, and Nashville to use the weighted vote and got beat. But those things happen, and that's politics 101. But there's so much money that comes through for Davidson, for our cities, have nothing to do with road, but it helps the transportation, signalization, and when you're going through a town, that the lights all are synchronized so you don't get backed up. Someone mentioned here earlier about the Triune area, which is two state roads running together. Well, you wouldn't think the locals would have to kick any money for that. If you own property, you have to fix your own fence. But when Highway 96 and Triune come together, which is two state routes, it took almost an act of Congress to get them to understand that intersection need to be fixed. And of course, we have to kick in money to do that. Right. We've seen that on New Highway 96 and Old Hickory, right. Two state routes. So that model has changed. And the MPO does play a role. I don't always agree with everything, but I doubt that you're going to agree with everything I do too.
We would love to. I've got a list of questions a mile long I'd like to ask, but I want to leave some time for our audience to ask questions. Sorry for the getting in the weeds maybe a little bit on this transportation funding, but the chamber and all the business community and most of us in Williamson County have an interest in helping the traffic situation, and the chamber's taking an active role in trying to explore ways to fund the roads we need, and as they say, if you follow the money, sometimes you'll figure out how things get done, and that's what we were trying to do this morning. Maybe understand it a little better, guys, but and I appreciate your efforts. Anyone in our audience have any questions of our delegation this morning? Ms. Ann, come up and introduce yourself. And
I'm Ann Peterson, one of the aldermen in Franklin, and I do want to say that I'd like to see something done about the city of Franklin getting funds from the state on roads. I mean, the Mac Hatcher project that was mentioned, thank you very much, Dave, is something that has been our #1 project for the 9 years that I have been on the board, and before then too. And I do understand about the importance of improving roads that have a lot of fatalities, but gee, the one big comment that everybody says that is affecting the quality of life in Franklin is the traffic congestion, and we really need help on that. And I was interested to hear all the things about the MPO, because I had wondered about how that works too, because it seems like actually projects inside the city limits of Franklin, very, very, very small for our size.
If,
Thank you, Ms. Ann.
if I can, I believe, and you know, you hate to say this because you know, I do not make the road list up. Commissioner makes a road list up. We approve the budget, so yes, we can change things in there. But next year, as you know, we put $142 million. We owed them $260. We put $142 million. So we still owe them, let's say, another $120 million that we're going to be repaying next year in next year's budget. And I think when we look at the road projects, I think Mac Hatcher will be in that 3-year road project. So like I said, I think we'll take care of 2 years of road building in this one single year with that extra money. And so, you know, we're all fighting for that, and you know, maybe we need to have the commissioner on here and let him commit to it. I cannot, but you know, no, I think this is something everyone knows. The commissioner knows. I mean, he was mayor of Franklin, so he knows the importance of how important that road is. And but I guarantee you, I could get people from Fairview or Thompson Station. They have a priority also, and this is what happens. But we are working on getting that on the 3-year road project, and once it's on there, you can say it will be built. It may take 5 or 6 years to do it, but you know, we're fortunate because the city has stepped up to the plate and did buy the land. We got the Ann, who is Alderman. We got the vice mayor here, Randy Blanton sitting there, and you know, you've stepped up to the plate and you purchased the land, the right of way for that. So when we do that, those projects do get moved up the list a little bit more because the city's invested 20-25% of the cost of that project. So, you know, we recognize that. When I have a city or a county putting in 25% of the money, I can do a lot more road projects when we look at it. So, you know, I do not make the list, but I can assure you that all of us sitting up here, the 4 of us sitting up here, know where Franklin Williamson County stands on that, and we're doing everything we can to get that funded in the road on the road list.
Great. More questions? If y'all don't ask them, I get to ask more. So.
Good morning. My name is Michael Phillips. I own a small business in Franklin. I've got 4 children that are students in our schools. My wife's a teacher in our schools. I want to back up to the very first question for a couple of reasons. One, the transgender basher myth is not going away anytime soon. The second reason is none of you actually answered the question. The question Dave asked is, where do you stand on the issue?
Good.
I'll start. I've got a granddaughter, and I do not think that a young man needs to be in the shower that my granddaughter's in, nor playing on the same ball team. If you read the DOJ's directive, it is a broad sweeping, a literal paradigm change on the way children have been treated. There is a thing called privacy in our Constitution, and the President and the DOJ's directive just swept away that privacy. Adamantly oppose what he's trying to do and how he's trying to remake our society.
I think if you're a boy, you should go to the boys' room. If you're a girl, you should go to the girls' room.
And I agree with both of them. I have 2 granddaughters that go to Hillsborough Elementary, and I thought we answered that I'm totally against, you know, what Jeremy just said, boys' room, girls' room. So, I mean, I don't know how clear we can answer it, and with the General Slattery, you know, filing the lawsuit, I think, you know, we all supported and applauded him for doing what he's doing.
And Jack, forgive me, it's not limited to the bathroom. And I have read the DOJ's directive.
Showers.
It's showers. It's ball teams. Every aspect is swept away, and his interpretation is implemented. It's dangerous and it's not right.
And it's not just students, it's volunteers, it's faculty and staff
everybody.
across the board. And Mr. Phillips, respectfully, you haven't listened to me much about it because I've been very clear about where I am on it, and I agree with these gentlemen. And here's how absurd it is, to make it even worse. There are schools, what happened in North Carolina, for a student who had gender identity issues, the school was making every effort to accommodate that child. with a private facility with a unisex bathroom. That wasn't good enough for the ACLU, and that's why they stepped in and they sued the school system. The law was passed in North Carolina to try to protect the schools from these lawsuits, because there are advocacy groups out there that are looking for opportunities to sue local schools. That's why they passed the bill. So a lot of people don't understand that. It's not as if schools are going out of their way to try to discriminate or create issues for kids that have gender identity issues. They're making efforts to accommodate those kids. And I would assume that Williamson County would do the same thing. That's not good enough, though. The directive is for the male to be able to use the female's bathroom, locker room, and everything else. It's unacceptable.
Totally.
I think we got that clear. Ladies and gentlemen, well, I've got one more question that was brought up we had an open house public hearing a couple weeks ago for the Columbia Avenue project, and the issue I thought brought up by one of the property owners that's going to be adversely impacted by widening that road and putting a median in it and that sort of thing. But he made the comment, why don't we just take all that money, I think it's $21 million that's earmarked for that project, and just do the southwest leg of McHatcher, and probably make a lot more impact on the Columbia Avenue traffic than trying to widen Columbia Avenue. And Rogers, you may be able to help with this, but who's looking at the big picture here?
Well, in a specific project like that, we would defer to the local government. We would look for guidance from the city of Franklin. And we work very closely with our local governments, both at the city and the county level. And if there is a preference with regards to a project like that, then they communicate, and we do that all the time. All that would take would be, conversations or maybe a resolution or something from the city of Franklin for that specific issue, because that's all within the city of Franklin. So if it's a choice between Columbia Avenue versus that extension of McHatcher, we'd be happy to. We're gonna pursue and lobby for whatever we're asked to do by the city.
Okay. Well, interesting segue, because next month is going to be the mayor of Franklin, city manager Eric Stuckey. Well, we'll be here and we can talk about things like that more specifically, but that was a question that came up that I thought was a very good question that nobody seems to be asking. And so we will head in that direction. Let me just say thank you, gentlemen, for being here now 5 months of every month to bring us up to date on what's going on the Hill. And we appreciate your time. We appreciate your effort to help us understand all this. And the Chamber enjoys having a forum where we can, get into the details behind the scenes and try to understand better what you all are dealing with, as well as trying to figure out why we're not getting our way all the time. So appreciate the time and the effort that y'all make to be here. I do want to thank a few other folks. Newt Danley and his team make this possible. The WCTV team is here every Friday morning when we're here early and make this happen. Mayor Rogers Anderson's office, it wouldn't be happening without his blessing, and we appreciate that, Rogers. The chamber staff is working behind the scenes to make sure we have coffee and other logistics to be here, and Brian, we appreciate your making sure that happens. WAKM live broadcasting this with a little assist from Aspen Grove Asset Management's making it live broadcast on WAKM. And Lynn Maddox with Vanderbilt's Office of Community Development. I'm going to leave it at that, Lynn. That's not exactly right, but it's pretty close. And we appreciate your assistance in making this happen. Hope you'll be back with us on June 24th. Again, we'll have a focus on the city of Franklin and talk to the mayor and the city manager about some of the specific issues going on in the city of Franklin. Appreciate your attendance. Look forward to having you back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.